Hi everyone, welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. This is your hub for engaging in deep conversations around serotonergic hallucinogens that alter perceptions, affect cognitive processes, induce mystical and spiritual experiences. Enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. Another episode, another new guest. I have with me Antonio Sebastian today from Canada, right, Antonio? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm actually from New York originally.
New York, and where you live now?
I live in New Jersey.
Okay.
It's okay. I was working with the Canadian team, so I'm sorry about that.
No worries. That's where I'm thinking Canada, and also Canada is thriving right now with the psilocybin research studies and amazing stuff they're doing. I guess it's because probably I read a lot of studies from Canada, but amazing to have you on the show. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction about you to our listeners. So you are the founder and owner of psilocybin, which is really, really cool name. And it means, tell us what it means.
It's awakening life in a conscious environment.
I love it.
Or it could be, it's pretty much interchangeable with whatever you want, but it starts off with awakening life in that particular environment that you prefer during your journey.
I love that. I prefer the cosmic environments. I love that.
That's yours then.
Yeah, so you have earned your BA in Management and Psychology from Long Island University and MA in Sociology from Arizona State University, where you focus on and thrive in forensic and quantum psychology, which is also my interest. And you are now working on numerous studies in the psychedelic industry that compiles data of the various states of consciousness while using psychedelics by incorporating the shamanic practices shared with you from childhood. So you have a really interesting story, and I came across your posts and I came across you on LinkedIn because you were talking about growing psilocybin in an environment that can give us the full potential benefits. It's not just about finding mushrooms and taking them. You do a really sophisticated way of compiling data and research on psilocybin. So I'm really, really interested to dive deep into that. But before, can we talk about your shamanic practices that passed on to you from family lineage and a bit more of your story?
Oh, sure. Well, I was born and raised in New York. I have a Spanish heritage, Puerto Rican descent. Also, it goes back to Mayan, Amazonian. And I've had women in my family that, were practitioners, healers, in which, if, anybody knows about South America or the Spanish Inquisition or anything, they had to hide that gift. So when I was born, I used to, I'm sure many people out there could relate to this. There's always seeing auras, seeing energy moving, seeing, the typical term would be ghosts, to which it never really bothered me, at all. But it was just bizarre to see all kinds of different, these abnormalities. And it was my great grandmother in particular, who would kind of sneak away and talk to me about these gifts and how to not lose them, and how she had to hide them for so long and practice with certain medicine. Because I remember asking her, how is it that you look so young and everybody else is old? I remember I was young when I said that. Everybody looks really older. Like if you just look back, just the timeline in just history, I'm 40. And I remember in the 80s, like 40-year-olds didn't look like me, or, it was a totally different time, but this woman was like beautiful. And, she said plant medicine. I remember I was 7 years old. And she would just show me the different levels of like certain cocoa leaves and especially mushrooms. So she explained to me in Puerto Rico, she took what she would say would be a vortex. And she had just broken English. And she said she'd always step into this vortex. And I asked what it was or whatever. And that's how I really got into the whole quantum thing at such a young age. And she told me that it was like this. She said penis because it looked like a penis, the mushroom. Because this penis could take you anywhere, and it was a joke. But I remember I took it like 8 years old. I took just a cap, and at that age, for some reason, it blew something open for me, to the point where I understood people far more than any other 8-year-old, 9-year-old could understand. I had an understanding of life, which at the same time really brought a lot of unnecessary trauma to me, because when you have so much energy going, when you have so much output happening, there's going to be a lot of input. So that happened, which I'll explain later. So then, as that went on, another woman in my family, a great aunt, she chimed in when I got older, and it was almost as I'm getting passed on, right? And it was more of learning about Salvia, ayahuasca, the different types. Obviously, I didn't take that, but she explained to me the different levels of where you need to be where you want to go, or like, if that makes sense. And I've always held that with me, and I knew that it was before my aunt died. She told me that specifically told me my journey won't begin to the mid. So if you look, I'm 40 now, and this is almost the mid. And it would take me this long to find peace or find the journey, because I need to clear out the understanding that I had when I first had the plant, or the fungi medicine. And it's been an incredible journey of self-awakening with this. Also, when my son was born, the reason I'm hopping is because I don't want to take up too much time like that. But needless to say, I had a pretty interesting life growing up. And I always kept these feelings, kept these emotions. Like, I couldn't go to nightclubs. I love going to nightclubs, and I love music, and I love dancing. It was my passion. I loved it. But my thing was, like, when you would, and just be realistic, I would go to these nightclubs or raves, and you'd take, ecstasy or whatever, but it was always stronger for me. So watching people on a dance floor dancing like in sync, or everybody's having faces, it's almost like you saw the real person behind who was in front of you all the time, every time you went out. And it freaked me out, but then all of a sudden it just got really exciting. It's almost like, oh man, let's see what's going on. I can have a conversation with somebody and just know exactly everything about your life right then and there, just based on your emotion, your stance, everything. And it turned out helping a lot of people. But when you're like 19 years old at a rave, and you're having this deep kind of conversation with some girl that you met from Portugal or something, or some guy from Germany, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's just like profound, like, holy cow. It kind of sticks with you, but it became more arrogant for me. And as I progressed, the real shamanic, I guess I have to say, practices came in when my son was born, in which it was this boom, like this awakening kind of experience, in which I ended up, going through traditional, from what I learned from my family, as far as, opening sacred space and going the traditional route, which I'm not going to bore anybody with. Plus, it's my methods. But it ended up being quite interesting, where it's connecting with spirit and connecting with my guides to find out that you are a Heyoka, or the sacred clown. You're a jokester. That's who you are. You're here to make fun out of life. You're here to you're here to make people realize that that suit that you're wearing is nothing more than a character that you created to make yourself stand out. And this is what you have to do. And this is why you're going to do it. And during that process, I ended up losing my family. I lost like my job, was homeless, the whole thing. And once I accepted my gifts and my facts, who I was, I got it all back. I got it all back. I'm with my wife. I got my little boy. It's almost so poetic and so movie-esque. It's outrageous. It's almost like I don't believe it. So so then all of a sudden I how mushrooms come into play. I've always been a big fan of mycology. I've always been a fan of how it works. How they played an effect in my life when I was going through these dark times, and listening, really listening, understanding, and incorporating music to help me during my healing. And also with Salvia, the bastard child of the psychedelic industry. Those two combined, it changed my entire world, because I let go. Like when people say, "Oh, you let go," it's like, no, to let go is very, very hard. And here I am.
Amazing.
Here I am.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for a quick kind of a update of your story. And I want to open a quick window about taking it at a young age, the psilocybin. And
yes.
I read lots of studies around Mazatec tribes giving it to their 5-year-olds as an initiation
yes.
into the world and celebration of surviving toddlerhood. And and I also read a study where they followed about 5 or 6 of these children into their adulthood, and they almost all of them picked a path in philanthropy or service, some kind of charity, some kind of service in humanity. So I find that really fascinating, and isn't it phenomenal how indigenous people and cultures around the globe, they knew how powerful and profound these substances, and they can literally change our pathways. And also coming back to your story of losing everything and then regaining everything, that's, for me, it's like the metaphor for the spiritual death and rebirth, in order to get in line with the path that you're meant to be on. So it's just so every time I speak to someone who's on this path, they always tell me very similar story of, there is a point in their life they had to let go of all material, shed, lose, and then come back again. Yeah, it's very powerful. So thank you for sharing that. It just kind of confirms all these processes that we always talk about, that I find really interesting. So coming back to mycology again. So before we go to Salvia, because I do want to talk about Salvia, that's only because I had an interest recently picked up from Hamilton Morris, one of the leading because of his psychomophobia, I think, the series, and I heard him talk in his lectures that Salvia is his favorite compound, which I really found it interesting. Because a lot of the psychedelic communities, they say, stay away from Salvia, from Salvia, right? Should we talk about that first, and then we'll go into mycology, maybe?
We could talk about that. I could tell you. Yes, we could talk about that briefly. I'm not as with Salvia. I am not as intimate with it, because I believe the intimacy comes with a certain particular whatever's calling to you, and whatever medicine or wherever you want to work with. Mushrooms have always been my forte. With Salvia, though, Salvia, to me, communicating with that spirit is very interesting, given the fact that I've tried almost everything, and I've journeyed, I've flown, I've swam, everything you could think. But Salvia, that woman, if it wasn't for Salvia, I definitely wouldn't be where I am, because Salvia, for me in particular, is so powerful as far as who you are. I mean, what I depending on who you are. And here's the thing I really want to say. With any psychedelics, people could say, oh yeah, you have this feeling or that feeling or this feeling or that feeling or all energy and everything and that's great. It's true. But what we have to realize is how the compounds are broken down. We really somehow misplace the scientific and the spiritual. We don't really blend them, and we should. Because somebody who's 6'4", 235 pounds, and somebody that's 5'5", 120 pounds, based on your diet, your upbringing, your emotional state, gut health, everything like that, you're going to have different experiences. So to sit there and use or to just put an experience or try to explain an experience, I believe the best way to explain experiences are in symbology, art. And people say, oh, I don't know how to draw. Yes, you can. Cavemen did it. You could do it. It's just you don't want to do it because you want to have such a defining or such a definition of what you're saying that you want to be heard. That comes from your childhood because maybe you weren't heard. Draw it out. Even if it doesn't make sense, it makes sense to you, because then what happens is it'll take away the beauty of it. It'll take away everything that it is. It almost bastardizes it. And I think that we're trying to get that out there so much that we're actually kind of doing psychedelics an injustice, if that makes sense. And I don't care what school you went to. I don't care, Johns Hopkins, NYU, Oxford, Cambridge, you're bastardizing a lot of it. And I'll say it to any of them. And at these people, the scientists, never even taken it. But that's another story. I digress. Salvia, going back. Salvia, to me, how I always got it was grown by a friend of mine. I didn't buy it online or anything like that. It dried out, and that initial impact when you're going through a depression, for example, which I was, it was something the night before that was told to me when I took a golden teacher, which I'll explain later. With the golden teacher mushrooms, I feel, in my experience and with the people that I work with, the golden teacher is not exactly the best one you want to take when you're depressed. It kind of like says, oh, it's like this metaphoric kind of entity in which it can cause you to reflect on your life. And if you're not happy with your life, you end up seeing something deeper than you're supposed to, but you start judging it as far as you. What this told me was, maybe I'm not for you. It was like getting broken up with. That makes sense. And it was literally like passing me off. And the way to explain that, again, it was almost as if I had to plant medicine there, and it was almost as if the spirit of the fungi knew, hey, I'm gonna have to pass this. You gotta go to her. She's the one for you right now.
Wow. And salvia, just for the listeners, if they don't know, it's a smoking psychedelic, right?
Yes, it's a smoking psychedelic. You could chew it. I mean, you could chew it. How I learned how to do it was chewing it originally. But the first time I smoked it, it was faster. But ideally, you'd want to chew it for some time and just keep it there. It tastes like what you would expect any kind of psychedelics would taste like, and everything's like candied. But it was smoking it. It almost as the onset is as if you were putting a cannon and shot out into this into space. And into space, where most psychedelics, you could feel tingles on your body, or you feel it in your feet and your neck. This thing almost takes your whole face and turns it upside down. And the visuals you get, the colors you get, it's so fast paced. But you could kind of see where you want to go, which I'll explain in the quantum aspect of it. With this particular night, which changed my world around, is that I was living in an apartment. My wife and I would just start, talking to each other again. She slept over with my son because I always had him on the weekends. And I was sleeping with my son, and I got up, because the kids had to be asleep. And I felt like I needed to do this. So I went to the living room, and I, did it. And I remember seeing the next few weeks of my life, if that makes sense. And I remember my wife getting out of the guest room because she didn't stay with me at the time. She'd sleep with me. I remember looking at her, and it was almost as if, like, if you see the movie The Predator from the 80s, and you see like the body heat, but it was like shooting off into this black hole kind of experience, and she was just there blocking the black hole. And I remember saying, like, damn, man, this is crazy. I need help. I need to go somewhere. That it was, I can't explain a hand, but a hammer coming out of the black hole over my wife's head and almost hitting me. And then I can't explain what I saw next, but I knew what was going to happen next. And what was going to happen next changed my life forever. It was like, okay, enough is enough. This is over. Stop it. This woman is here for you. Your baby is there. You have to make this risk. This is going to be damn painful, but you're going to make it. And that's how it's always been. But every time I've taken it, something of that kind of nature happened. And it's been proven, you could say, to help alleviate depression. It's just, are you ready or not to take that journey? Because that journey is not an easy one. That journey is scary. And it doesn't last long. But it's not like, oh man, look at the colors, and no, everything makes sense, and well, let's play the guitar. No, it's not that. It's like, here you fucking go. You want an experience? Here you go. Let's see how you handle this. And that's what happened. And so couple that with the mushrooms to have an explanation of all that, because you need to have an explanation. And mushrooms do help. It's good to combine when you know how to combine. Because if you don't have a translator, I feel like mushrooms is a big translator. It's just how you see it. Then all of a sudden you're stuck out there with the what ifs, and before you know it, you're looking to other people to explain your experience, and they're going to explain their experience based on somebody else's experience or based on a book, and you never get an answer. So it becomes a circle of nonsense that people think they know, and that I think it's kind of completely. I don't think it helps out a lot, but I hope that makes sense. But as far as compounds of salvia, I couldn't tell you. I just know that experience is frightening. But
I think a lot of people talk about in a similar way of salvia. So how do you know the dose? Like how do you know how much to smoke, how much to put in your
the dosage, the first time I was introduced to salvia was through another family member who also was into was a Wiccan. And they were used in bowls, and the bowls that they would use, the way I was taught, I don't know if you know any Wiccans out there or whomever, but it was told that there's a bowl in your hand, and this is still to this day, this doesn't make sense to me, but it makes sense. There's a bowl in your hand, and when you grind it up, the basic bowl in your hand, when you do this, will give you the idea. It's not too much. But like it fits perfectly in the nooks and the crannies. And when you have that, that's how much you have. That's with anything, apparently. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I've always used that in my head. I'm like, oh, people are looking at me like I'm weird. Even when I'm like, believe it or not, when I used to smoke marijuana, I would just take and put it in my hand. I was like, oh, okay, what a weirdo. I'm like, okay. But it worked. I don't know. It worked metaphorically. Like you weren't too over the top, but you weren't like too like low. It was crazy, but that was taught to me, and how each particular person should take that, because it's a smoking and eating. Obviously, it's different. You know, I can't even get into that, but
how different in terms of stronger, less strong?
Well, when you're chewing it, you know, because it's going directly into your bloodstream through your mouth, it's totally different experience because it's going through, different glands. And when it's broken down, going down your throat, and into your chest and through your body, it takes a little bit longer to metabolize, I'm assuming. And when you smoke it, because it's a direct passage into your lungs and into those blood vessels, just like anything, it's as if, it's like a whole bunch of, the way I could explain it, just picture a sponge, right? Just with openings and just dust getting shot into there, wet dust, and everything's gonna get clogged. Like, that's it. And then you're gone for a little bit. You're in space, like literally. But the dosage I always found was my trick was always the palm of the hand thing that I learned around like 10 years old.
Yeah, this is so great, because Michael Pollan has an interesting lecture on when he talks about doses, because someone like Hamilton Morris would always want to know the measuring, how much have I taken, what is the measure, as a chemist. And then Michael Pollan was making the audience laugh by saying, if he was to ask a shaman or a facilitator, they'll say, oh, just a little bit, this much or that much. It's like, how do you know? You can't, because these substances, it's just one of those things that it's mainly experience dependent, rather than like you said earlier about body mass and someone's background and upbringing, how experience changes. So we're in a very strange place with the doses and knowing, like even mushrooms, like they say, oh, you got to powder them up, which we will come to that talk in a moment, but to really get the exact, but you can't. This is one thing that I'm sure you will enlighten us in many levels, because a lot of people that I hear talking about, if you grind the mushrooms, then you're definitely guaranteed you're going to get the same experience or the same amount of psilocybin compound inside the powder, which probably, I'll take your opinion on that, but I still think that no, each dose will be different. Doesn't matter how carefully you measure, it's just the way the nature serves these substances to us. But this is my own opinion nevertheless, so I'd like to hear yours. So just quickly before moving to mycology, I just want to say to the listeners, if you're interested in salvia, make sure you do your deep research, because it is very, very serious, and please don't put yourselves at risk. So coming back to mycology, so tell us what your mission is with psilocybin, and what are you doing with this whole research and study? I know you are working alongside with a doctor.
Yes, Dr. Michael Gentile, however you want to call it. Yeah, he's one of the top psychiatrists that actually works here in New Jersey with, well, it started off with cannabis, but it's in psychedelic medicine. And, I'm be working with another doctor. I can't say it right now because he's working with a specific company, and it's very funky right now with everybody. So needless to say, like I said earlier, I'm probably the most honest, raw guy. There's no smile. I mean, there are smiles. I like smiling, but there's no BS behind what I do. I'm a totally different animal as opposed to what you would get in this industry as far as and so I'm gonna be honest with a lot of people here. Like I don't have time for fluff. I believe that we're on such an amazing level to actually physically really like dig deep and help people. And so that's what I'm doing. So there's a lot of people that are working with me underneath other businesses and companies that really can't come out and say it because it's funky. But people will see. But that's
I guess due to the legal status right now with mushrooms, it's very, very tricky right now to talk about anything. But then again, the mental health space is coming strong into this space, because I think in the West that might be our outlet into getting them to be legalized or decriminalized somehow. I don't know, because all I can think of is that hopefully we won't relive what happened in the 50s. Currently, people talking about psychedelic renaissance happening, but at the same time, as like you said earlier, scientists and psychologists and all these clinical researchers are stepping in. Biotech companies are moving in fast. So there's a lot going on that we probably won't have to, discuss all of it. But from a legal point, what can we do as an individual, as facilitators, as people who are in the space helping other people? What can we do, and how can we take gentle steps, or I don't know, how can we protect these medicines from becoming, or going back to the thing that we had in the 50s again? Because that's we don't want to go there. That's one thing we need to be absolutely careful of, not going back there again. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you look back in even like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, I'll jump into the 20s and 30s in particular, when the way I see it is it's almost like a new form of a prohibition. So, you know, you have people like I was on this chat with this amazing soul. I'm pretty sure I don't know if you came across him, Chi. He does trip setting. His name is Chi. And there was this amazing call with there's all these meetings of the mind are on there. And the first thing everybody says, oh, my client this, my client that, and I do this and I do that, whatever. So people are doing it anyway. You're doing this shit anyway. So it's no different than prohibition. You know what I mean? Why? Because you don't believe in a system. And the reasons the 50s worked, that all I say it would work. And people, who say that, it worked because in the 60s you had people saying no. And they did it anyway. And what do we get? We got music. We had the Beatles, who were the tight ass, little bowl haircuts guys, actually just completely changing paths and making music that mattered, that really spoke to people. You had the Doors. You had art, a boom in the 60s. Why? Because of this FU kind of mentality. And we're there. We are getting there. The only thing is that I see happening is that what you see with like the Compass and people like that are that are trying to get patents on natural medicine. Like, that's outrageous. There's a monopoly in play here. Everybody needs to wake up to that one. These people are trying to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to patent air. And if you breathe it, you got to do it to me, because if you breathe enough times, 4 or 5 times, by tightening your stomach, you can get a high. Well, we own that. And nobody finds it interesting that how these companies, Numinous and everything like that, yeah, I'll say it, how they all went public in the same week. But they're all against each other, but they're all trying to help people. I think, to me, it's bullshit. But as far as how individual practitioners work, like if you look at my Facebook page, for example, I'm more of the I'm showing you how to, I loophole it. So I'm showing you how to make it. I'm not saying it's what it is, but at the same time, it's teaching people how to actually grow your own stuff, but grow it in a way where it matters to you. It's the basics, or talking about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, I think there's so much going on right now with cryptocurrency and like, it's almost as the government knows it's happening, or the governments know it's happening, but they're not really jumping on that bandwagon to actually stop it. You know what I mean? I think they're going to be embracing it very soon, depending on how the studies go. Mm-hmm. And what particular groups that you're using. So with the psilocybin community, or just or community in general with psychedelics, the focus is always mental health. How does that benefit the government? It doesn't. I'll tell you why. One, because mental health is what was pretty much is their number one, or pharmaceutical companies' number one means of money. Like, you keep them sicker. You put them on more medicine. Put them on the Adderall. Put them on this. Put them on Zoloft. Put them on that. Who would benefit from that? You know what I mean? Obviously not the guy. I mean, not if you were to cure that, what would happen then? Like, it would be almost there would be an uproar. Sure, people would be happier, but a lot of money would be gone. A lot of companies would be going out of business. If anybody doesn't understand a basic business model, I'm not going to give you the key to success by getting you healthy. And that's the real world, unfortunately. That's the facts. And, when you could just take it all away with psilocybin or with LSD or whatever,
yeah,
and made by individuals, regular people, kind of like, I don't know if you follow the stocks, like, regular people who almost destroyed the stock market over here in the United States with GameStop stock, like crazy. So when you educate more people, you're talking about not only a digital revolution, a psychedelic revolution, you're talking about a worldwide revolution in which the chips are going to fall where they may. However, there'll be more of an understanding where you stand as an individual and how powerful you are. But you have to be able to take what's coming from it. That doesn't mean going to jail or anything. That just shows that once you show the vulnerability in the bigger power, that's more of a responsibility for you if you are in this industry, and how you will be able to grow to bring more people in, but not go along the same lines of the capitalistic idea where you just want to mooch or grab money from people just because you want to stay in business, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
what you were saying before, it's almost like this prohibition thing. But I think it's a little more lax, more lenient, because people are waiting for the bigger biopharmaceutical companies to come in with their little patents and their little whatever the swabs that they put on their tongue with psilocybin or mush or lollipops soon, or whatever crazy stuff they have. And they're just saying, okay, we're going to give you the biopharma, we're going to give you that label. Meanwhile, you guys were working at Amazon not long ago, or some people. Look at some of the people on LinkedIn. It's like, you're a CEO of this biopharmaceutical company, but you were like a CFO of like Walmart like a year ago. But what makes you qualified? Just because you have qualifications does not mean you should be qualified for psychedelics. That's the problem I have.
Yeah.
But we'll give you this, take it over, and now what's going to happen is that when you do make these groups, and we'll make it happen for you as far as people who are lending them money or venture capitalists, you're going to give us a lot of money. We're going to stay private, but we're going to make sure you take it so we get a kickback. Plus, I'm on a real pharmaceutical side, like a Pfizer or whoever. And so we'll just make it a nice little umbrella to make people happy. We'll just incorporate little by little the psychedelic community into the mainstream pharmaceutical community, and we'll do it. That's what's happening. Yeah. And so I won't take that. And I know a lot of people won't take that. And that's pretty, it's literally like, it's an interesting time. It's just whether or not we want to say you're awake, or people who will say they're awake, but really be awake in business. It's cool to be in the spiritual clouds. Don't get me wrong. I think it's nice up there. Bravo. You got to have your feet on the ground. From roots to stardust, you have to have your feet on the ground, or else you're going to be completely, you're going to be believing in Santa Claus your entire life. And that's not fair to you, especially if you're in this community.
Yeah. So yeah, these are great insights. So what I'm observing from a holistic psychotherapy background is that I'm seeing emerging groups and people who's been in the psychedelic scene for a very long time, maybe decades, maybe from a childhood, like yourself, or maybe, healing themselves, the path of healing arts, taking them to that path, and they are connected with this plant medicine. So what I see in those communities is that somehow they are still having these, I call them cat fights, like who's enlightened the most. These shaman, like one of the shamans that I love working with, she says there are shaman wars out there that are more serious than anything in the world, she says, because they really use these powers against each other. So while these communities are doing all of these, I call cat fights, right? Of course, the CEO of another company is going to step in and take over this industry, because they are trained specifically, structurally, how to create businesses from ground up with nothing. They're just so bold and brave, and they have a different agenda. And that's why I think this is what I'm seeing with the biotech companies moving in, and a lot of people on LinkedIn, place like LinkedIn, they're always, like I'm scrolling and all I see is psychedelic updates from like you said, business people. So because while the real communities of psychedelic renaissance, the real people who brought psychedelics, the culture here, they are not capable of doing what the other guys are doing, which are bold, trained, structured, they have courage because they understand business, they know how to make money. So like I said, and the reason for that is the real, authentic psychedelic user really is connected to plant. They come from a trauma, they come from an emotional healing, they come from a very different place. They have no business in making money. They respect these plants. They, like the real authentic people, really respect these plants, and they want everybody to learn and cultivate and heal themselves. But the thing is, in the in the holistic psychotherapy, we talk about capacity. That's why you also probably see a lot of people, they take, it's my 120th ayahuasca ceremony, but they haven't changed at all. And this is where we talk about capacity. That's why my issue is promoting psychedelics as magic cure. Because anyone who's in understanding of how intelligent, this unconscious patterns, dysfunctions, trauma, healing is a lifelong process. And that's where we talk about capacity. If a person cannot build capacity to deal with their own dysfunction, they will not be strong enough to not even forget claiming self-agency and become their own person and use their own intelligence and discernment. They will be just a product of, you know, they call the ayahuasca tourism or the psychedelic tourism forever, because they don't have the capacity, and they will maybe end up recreational dependency forever, right? So issue is not just one. There are like many. There are many to discuss, but so I don't know where we're going with all this, but
it's interesting you mentioned that about the money aspect, and that's one thing that, you know, when I first, so I was laying in bed when I told you about earlier, and I felt when I first started getting like the awakening, when I said I started getting back into shamanic experiences, and I've always seen things. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, hey, like, I don't know if you ever seen Long Island Medium Lady or those people, or there's some funky people out there that are, you know, they're so full of shit, it hurts. So it's just like, you know, I remember, what's it like, you know, it's like a dodgeball, that doom, there's a certain sound that dodgeball makes. So I remember sleeping in my room and getting hitting the head with this dodgeball, and I woke up, and all of a sudden from that day, my son was around 3, and I used to co-sleep, right? And I looked around, and I saw these giant figures, 6 particularly, around, and they weren't for me, they were for my son. And my son is an indigo. My son remembers his birth and his past lives and stuff like that. And I'm not like, oh my God, I should write a book about it. It just is what it is. He remembers it. He remembers the shit. He remembers my wife from a previous life. I remember my wife from previous lives. It's just, we're all connected. Very interesting. But I remember seeing that, and I'm like, oh, okay. So the first thing that happened, because I'm first off, I'm getting into real dad mode, because I think for men, you don't really embrace being a dad until later on, which is very interesting. You know, where I would see my wife, she did like 50 hours labor, no drugs, the whole thing, and her coming out. I literally saw my wife go from my fiance or girl to a woman, and that was probably profound. That was so profound for me, and it was like, oh man, I got to catch up. Like, we always got to catch up. Man always has to catch up. So I'm sitting there, okay, they're here for my son. They're protecting him. Okay, this is really amazing. And it was something, they're beautiful, but I can't explain what they look like. And from that going forward, I had these experiences I would have as a child, but having these experiences as an adult and having as a child is different. There's more of a question. There's more of an inquisitive nature. And I went down this path, and I think a lot of people go through this, is that when you actually start, doing your meditations, doing your journey, you kind of forget about the real world, right? And that happened, but you can't do that shit when you have a family. And I learned that the hard way. So my job didn't make sense. I don't belong here. Started listening to, like, one of my favorite bands ever is Radiohead. Started listening to Radiohead more and just putting myself into Tom York's music and detaching. But finding beauty in self, in oneness. But meanwhile, bills have to get paid. So
this is what I mean.
Yeah. So what happened with me was, like, with my guides and my I want to say my grandmother, you know what I mean? Like my family or whoever, my cosmic family, my cosmic parents, the creators of my soul. It was no, you're meant more for this. You're not going down that trap. And then it was like, here you go. You want to live that life? Bang, everything's gone. So during that time, I had to learn, like, again, I was doing shamanic calls. And I hate calling myself a shaman because it's been so used. It's almost like it's sad. Like, I didn't go to a weekend course. Like, I didn't do that. That to me is not that you maybe shamanic practices, but not being, that's just me. But doing all that, losing all that, having all that, and again, Sue, like, I'll tell you, like, I've been through everything you could possibly imagine in life, and it was an understanding, and the understanding of business came was after my Salvia session, when I told you I made that jump, and I actually was offered a position with an old friend of mine to be his manager. He was in the entertainment industry. I knew nothing of it, but from that moment on, I had to learn fast how to not only pretend to be a bougie guy, but to pretend to be a bougie guy in the entertainment industry. Fake it till you make it kind of thing. And I did. And from that experience, I remember sitting at Javier's in Las Vegas, and I lived in Las Vegas for a little bit during that time. And I went from sleeping in nothing to sleeping in a penthouse in the MGM Signature, which was fantastic, with meeting everybody you could possibly imagine, private airplanes, the whole thing, from nothing to that after the Salvia session. So I had to learn, and one of the things I did, I had to learn how to make money, really learn how to make money, not like just getting by, not just like the sharks. And I found that the higher you go, the less you care about people. It's just the way it is, the way of the world. Because if you care about everybody, you're gonna go broke. You have to have that balance. And that was tremendous for me. And I don't think a lot of people get that, because you don't go from one to the other. That extreme does not happen, depending on where you put yourself. And I think the Salvia helped me with that. But when I left that world, I went back into a little bit of a sadness, because that world was so dark for me. And I'm not going to get into the story, but I'll just tell you the overall. It brought me to a place in the middle of the desert where I was in the trunk of a car with a shotgun in my mouth. True story. After everything. And I wanted to come home. And I came home, and I just ended up taking everything I learned and moving forward. But the true matter is that whole, what that metaphor means is you have to have that sacrifice, and you can't live off other people. Living off other people and providing a service for other people are very different. And I think a lot of people are trying to live off people now based on their practices, or based on their practices when they're not healed themselves. So therefore, you're not seeing the complete, you're not seeing the potential that you have, because you're limiting yourself, because you do want to help people. But this is a business. Unfortunately, this is the way of the world. But you're in the clouds again, and there's that thin line. And this is one thing I talk about Alice, that I'm fit to, because I had both sides. I'm right in the middle, and one of the main goals of Alice is to be able to combine the two worlds. There is a way. In our structure, there is a way to have both working simultaneously, harmoniously, with utter, tremendous growth, without being on the stock market, without anything like that. And there's a way to do it. It just has to be done with all hands on deck, and with the true understanding that human beings are human beings, and every cell in their body matters. And as practitioners, if we don't listen to that, as practitioners, as human beings, if we don't actually look into the eyes of somebody and see who they really are, we're never going to help them. And we failed. We're failing people. We're failing people because we want to put our own stories into the mix. And that, to me, is heartbreaking.
Exactly. And that's where the psychedelic community, again, losing points, because everybody is so wrapped up in their own story and their healing journeys and their ceremonies and how many trips they have sat. And it's crazy. But I also see this as a process of building capacity, because I'm very open-minded when it comes to the process. I think it's because of my work with a lot of the trauma experts and a lot of, professionals who put their lives on the line, 40, 30 years of working with traumatic people. I think, we did now, look at trauma. It's just been passed around like it's nothing. And 5 years ago, not a lot of people talked about this. 10 years ago, for example. So I do believe that this is a phase that I'm hoping that psychedelic communities will go through and come to their own authentic selves, to realize, okay, I'm done now. I'm really hoping for that day. Okay, let's stop talking about our stories and let's do the collective work together. And like you said, hands on deck. And that's why it doesn't matter how much these biotech companies move in, people who understand how psychedelics work, they know that's not the way to help people. So thank you for saying that. And I want to just quick go back to what you said to me. We had a conversation and you told me about this quantum neurological psychedelic mapping and navigation.
Yes.
I'm so interested in that. And see, I think someone like you could bring so much into the mycology world with your specific and unique understanding and everything, you know, in our communications that you tell us about the growing incubation. Can you tell us about that? And what does that mean, psychedelic mapping and navigation?
Oh, sure. I mean, first off, I mean, do you want me to go with the mycology, or do you want to just go right to the navigation and mapping? I'll go with that.
Whichever feels good. And also, you know, I'll let you make a decision which will be more beneficial.
Okay, so I'll start from the roots. Okay, first, as far as microdosing is concerned, as far as you know, species, what I've learned, or what I've grasped, and one thing in particular is when you grow your own mushrooms, it's not like a plant, it's not like weed, you know, because they share more DNA with us than anything. It's like, you know, they're pretty much like us. It's weird. That cultivation is very specific, and it's a lot of trial and error. From the little spores all the way down to either the agar plates or to the substrate or to whatever spawn jar that you want to put it in, whether it's grain, brown rice, whatever it is. You eventually, like a mate, have to learn the specifics of it. Now, there are some people that will say, oh, psilocybin, no, but it's not. There's a whole different array of different types of mushrooms, which I'm not going to get into. People could Google it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not stamens. But in my experiences working with different species, I've noticed, and it came interesting to me, interestingly enough, I put two different types of substrate with the same species, and they grew different. I'm like, okay, maybe that happens. So obviously, you know, with science, you keep, you know, doing the same thing over and over again, so you pretty much have an understanding or an idea of what's true. So 4 or 5 times later, you pretty much get the same result, but with more substrate, 4 or 5. So then you start playing real science and getting excited about it. Like, oh, okay, what if I add this? What if I add this? What if I do this, that? And lo and behold, you know, we've come to a conclusion of, as far as substrate goes, this is what could be, you know, optimal for this particular mushroom. Now you got to talk about all the other species, because in your mind, as growing as a cultivator, you're like, okay, this will work for everything. But then you go to a masotapic, which doesn't work that way. It's a totally different animal. You're like, oh, that doesn't work for this. This doesn't make sense. So then back to the drawing board. And then you go to a Burma, and then you go to Hawaii, and you go to Brazil, then you go to Treasure Coast, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, these guys are actual individuals. Upon finding this, now it's like, okay, what else do they like? I'll try music. Everybody loves music. Cool. Oddly enough, in my, you know, studies, golden teacher prefers classical music, specifically Bach, for some reason.
Is it because of the philosophical nature, or
it has? I mean, it's somebody knew something. That's why they named it golden teacher. It's like, it's very bizarre. So out of 15 to 30 grows, that's a big difference, 15 to 30. But because I mixed and matched a little bit, I've noticed that with again, I grow specifically. I can't give away Willy Wonka's secrets because it'd be, you know, just would take away from business. But you know, I found the perfect substrate and the perfect medium, and also how to really utilize what specific water that I'm using with them, with condensation and everything, and as far as humidity. And I found that they fancy that as the different like masotapic like Mesotelic likes techno
Mhm.
music, high-end music.
How did you come to know this? Like you said, is it lots of trials or?
Well, what happened? I ended up I honestly don't know. I felt that with music, like the true understanding of this particular nature came when I was dating my wife, and it was like 4:30 in the morning, and she was outside with her shoes off and shorts and talking to plants with a cigarette in her mouth. I'm like, you're a weirdo, bro. And she just like, now they're listening, they always do, and that always stuck with me. And because I love mushrooms, I would talk to them, and just like because they're alive, there felt like there's almost, and it's going to sound crazy, but it almost feels like there's a trust. You're building them, you're growing them, they are alive, they depend on you. I mean, they accept vibration, we know that. They feel it, it moves them. The vibration of your voice, the energy presented in you, because you are a conduit of energy. And if you go at it with an open understanding and open mind, not looking at them as fungi, not even looking at them as children. People like to call their plants children, but looking at them as literally growing a little Yoda or little Buddha or whomever you want to call it, and saying, hey, this is the maximum potential. I want to hear what you like. So with the Golden Teacher, it put me to another place, because believe it or not, so I used to be a DJ back in the day. I would play techno music. And I remember just my wife took him as a topic, and she's like, oh my God, it feels like ecstasy. I'm like, oh, okay. Put that two and two together, put techno music to it. First put it to classical. It was a slow grow. It was like a delayed grow. Put techno
Okay. So that's how you know whether they like it or not,
with it,
because of the way they thrive and grow, and yeah.
And seeing the thickness, because of it, like, when there's more energy going on, it just seems like there's a lot more water consumption. It's thicker. Like, I don't know if you saw the picture of the penis. It's like massive. And so, needless to say, all these different species ended up having their own specific style, in which I have to keep everything separate with their own music. And it's really fascinating to me, to the point where I ended up saying, okay, what if we mix these species? How do we mix them? I'm not going to get into that, but I ended up combining these species and creating hybrids. So I
can also imagine having like crystals, having, I don't know, prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can talk to them, because
Yeah.
I do believe they are aware of us as well. And just want to quickly open a window before you go on. I heard that Mazatecs call them Niños Santos, like holy children, right?
Yes.
This is known. So you're very right. They call them children, holy children. So I think, it's just sounded, when I read that, I thought, oh my God, this is so beautiful. They knew the spirit of the mushroom. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, if you think about it, bless the first person that actually decided to try to eat one. And probably, when you look back in history, just to what it does to the mind, I'm pretty sure that was the missing link, where we learned actually how to speak. Because I think it's almost been documented that may be the case, because out of all the different types of psychedelics naturals out there, this one is the most successful, ready to go. I mean, you can't just, how many people go to, like, ayahuasca is that's a process. Salvia, it's a process, like, or if you just, everything looks so similar, obviously there's certain fruits out there, there's so much more. There's so much more psychedelics out there that we don't even know about. And we're jaded to think if this is it. But, to have that laying around, to the person that actually, bless you, whoever you did, because that was something that was calling. That was the button of life that made people just say, okay, now we could go forward. But somewhere along the line, it was bastardized. But yes, they're very, very magical. They're very, very powerful. And with that, to be able to not only understand them, to not only be able to understand them as an individual, to not only be able to understand their potency as an individual, it could change a lot, and it could enhance experiences. It could really make a difference, especially, like I said, with hybrid and growing, and that's a whole other thing. But being able to have a true passion for it, it's it's really cool because you know exactly how you feel taking them. With the one I was telling you yesterday, right? When we were messaging, that one was more of like a body relaxed, almost wet feeling on, wet, the indigo, where you're just like, okay, this is where it's at. I don't feel too visually, but I feel, I'm auditory, and I could, if I wanted to communicate with an entity, if I had that gift, because some people don't have that gift. Not everybody can do it. If you could talk to entities, then this probably is for you. Me, I don't talk to entities. I talk, but it signals and like flashes with me. There's no communication like that. But it was more of it was very, very interesting. So how I gauge that with certain different ailments, I would have people that would, come to me with certain ailments in my original shamanic practices, and this one would be great for anxiety. And that's how I would gauge it. Okay, this will work, because I've had almost everything you could possibly imagine as far as a feeling. And so with each particular strain, there's always something different, and that is something that connects to something else. Obviously, I'm one person. They say, "Oh, it worked for me. It has to work for everybody." No, there has to be a process, which, like we spoke about before, as far as the prohibition thing, you're going to have willing people to do it, and I have had. And I have well over 200 people, and with different strains. And you can't, I have my own documents, but you can't document it and put it out in paper, because right away you're doing something legal, especially in the state of New Jersey. You're like, forget it. Yeah. But from what I've seen and broken down to different types of mental illness, and also PTSD and everything, trauma, I can confidently say to anybody who's listening out there, I confidently say I have specific mushrooms for specific ailments that work. And it is amazing, because you feel like you're not just journeying, but you feel like your body is healing. But that's a process in its own. It's not just taking it with somebody with a clipboard and you have these little glasses on, you're laying in bed. No, it's different. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. And this is,
and this is neurological mapping that you talk about.
No, this is before it. This is before it.
Before you get to it.
Mm-hmm. Because now you got to go into microdosing. My particular microdosing is different than everybody else. And I believe, lady, I forgot her last name, Miriam. She's from the Netherlands. She's awesome. To me, microdosing is where, like, the moment you decide to microdose, you need to, for Alice anyway, for us, what specific strain you need. Now, when you microdose, people have this, the Stamets picture, which I disagree with. I disagree with because it goes back to the body with the gut health. You need to know this shit. You need to know where your mental health is at. You need, just because you say you're depressed, what are you depressed about? Are you depressed because your football team left or lost? Are you upset because your wife left you, your girlfriend left you? Are you depressed because you have childhood trauma? So now we have these branches. If you don't get down to the branches, and a lot of people won't be honest with you. They'll just say, oh, whatever, or they'll hide it because they're afraid, they'll mask. And I think that's where the comfortability comes in with the practitioner, because if they can't be honest with you, because we're very taboo with things too. So if you, like, for example, sex is a big taboo. You can't sit there and say, hey, I was raped. Some powerful woman will say that and will wear that as a badge of honor, because fuck yeah, you said it. You said it out loud. Yeah, those bastards, whatever. You're a powerful woman because you can admit that. A lot of women can't admit that. I was raped, me in particular. And I can say that. Not many men can say that, And when you have that, when you have somebody being dead honest with them, that shows that they actually want to heal. Now that you have that, based on their heart rate, how their body just basically responds to anything, which you have to check, then you can say, okay, let's just hypothetically say, I like doing wet mushrooms. I like it fresh. I always find it better for me. That's just me. Everybody's different. I prefer the fresh, and I prefer a lemon tech. I'm sure you know what that is. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, that's you just put it in lemon juice, let it sit, go for go. So a 15 grams of wet would be, it's a tenth, so it'd be like 1.5 grams dry. But that, to me, again, this is just me, but everybody's different. I'd have to know you particularly and know what you're going. But you need to find the medium. If you go to the smallest dose, to the medium dose, or the max dose or the heroic dose, if you find the medium to the point where that particular mushroom hits you, but you don't fly, but it's just like, oh, your body, what then happens, sets off these receptors cellularly whenever you take a drug. So it's almost like recording it. If it vibes with you, if your body digs it, if you put yourself in a mental state and your body digs it, now what happens is you have this pattern of remembrance. Okay, gut health. Gut health is another brain. Cool. I remember that one. I liked it. Good. Now we can go forward. Now we can start with the microdosing, because you're not jumping into something new, because your body needs to get used to something. Your body needs to connect with whatever it is you're trying to do. If you do microdosing, little by little, that's cool, but your body really won't know what to experience when you really experience it. As far as macrodosing or going a higher dosages, you need to start somewhere a little bit higher to see if you'll accept the shit first. And I think that would eliminate a lot of different issues if you were to do that, and if a person would really zone in on you as far as bad trips and stuff. It will clear the mental space.
Yeah.
So now
I feel like your level of understanding the mushrooms is just so sophisticated for a beginner. I feel like it's like the next level of into the mycology or the mushroom world. I just feel like a lot of people are so disconnected. They cannot think of these things to even come to understanding that, let alone, they're so scared to try anything new, let alone,
of course,
to understand. So, but I do appreciate how you're so passionate about this. And I really believe that we're on the verge of an amazing gateway into more understanding and connection with these beautiful substances. So yeah, please carry on.
No, we are, and you're right. I get carried away, I get excited, but it's pretty much explaining to somebody that, hey, you have to have a little bit of a feeling before to see if it works for you. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to give you a mazotapic and it has like that ecstasy, whatever kind of feeling, and it does you injustice, because you have ADHD or you have something that's already high springy. So you want to be able to balance them. So somebody who has anxiety or something like that, you wouldn't give them a mazo or too much of a mazo, or penis envy or something. And once you could gauge that, now what you could do is, when they do go into a macro dose, if they want to try a hero's dose, your body already has that mapping or that understanding of that mushroom. So it won't be as frightening when it actually goes into that journey. When you go into that journey, all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is cool. So the first experience, when you go into a higher experience, again, everybody's different. For mushrooms in particular, if you have a visual, or the vortex is the swirling lights, everything like that. So my belief in what I've been studying, in people in particular, is that nobody ever has the same trip twice, right? So when you don't have that, it's different. But what do we get from our trips? What do we get from our journeys? We have to sit there, go through it, come back, and have this profound experience, and then digest it and say, okay, this is what this meant. Now, from what I gather, I take life as a computer. What does that mean? That means that, and this is quantum mapping, and this is where I'm getting to it, just so you know. If you have a computer and you have one folder, right? One folder on there. Let's say that's your life. And every year that goes by, another folder is there. In those folders are experiences. So as you have these experiences, what happens? Your computer screen begins to fill up with folders. And as you fill up with folders, and if you want to move on to something else, all of a sudden your computer either dies, it's too slow, or whatever. That is the human experience before you have psychedelics. You really have to clear up the stuff beforehand. And how do you do that? You could pretend as much as you want and start clicking and putting all the folders into one thing, but at the end of the day, that burden is still there on your drive. That's still heavy on you. You can't hide. You can't run from it. The problem is you're scared to delete it because that's who you are. That's who you want to be. So you could pretend and just pretend it doesn't exist. You download the antivirus, whatever you want, but you still need to delete it, but you won't. Now, why won't you do it? Because you don't have admin control to delete everything. You know how many times you have been on a computer since you do not have access and you just kind of let it be? You accept the fact that you don't have admin control to your own computer. So you accept the fact that you don't have admin control to your own brain. Now, how do you get that? You get that because you have to actually be one with your body. Now, I'm not talking about the Buddhists. I'm not talking about, the monks out there that chant to go into the woods and everything like that, because you can't compare yourself to them. Why? Because most of us live in cities or anything like that. So you can't compare yourself to any higher enlightened person or shamans that live in the woods because you can't. You're around the hustle and bustle every day, and you're scrolling and you're looking at all this shit all day. So every time you do that, your body accepts whatever energy is getting put in. You don't have to be in front of anybody to receive that input. Everything's digital now, believe it or not. So why does this matter? This matters because admin access is the ability to create a new life for yourself. As far as your trip when you're going on it, it will give you very specific cues, whether it's a color, whether it's a light, whatever it is. Most of these colors will represent your chakra system. Again, this is all in theory, but practice theory, but it kind of helps a lot of people that I work with actually go through this. So I'm assuming this may be on the right path. So whatever color presents itself numerous times, that is where you have to work on during your trips. Now, while you go on these trips, focus on that, and it will start to distract you. The colors will distract you. You will distract yourself because there's a fail-safe. Because if you, with all the trauma that you've had admin access to your brain, true understanding to your brain, you'd kill yourself. It's like opening up Pandora's box because you're not capable of having it. Our brain is so powerful, you cannot give that gift to somebody. Because why? Because when you're born and when you're younger, you're born into this world with an experience of, I would like to think, trust that was taken away at such a young age. So right away, now you're setting up borders, right?
Yeah.
Or barriers. And little by little, you're backing up as this life is approaching. And you're going back into your brain. So that child of new wonder and experience is slowly backing up, locking the key and putting it away. And now the life's journey is finding your way through this crazy map to find that little person who needs to have that freedom. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But we get distracted. So on this journey, the navigation is pretty much finding your way back there. And when you find your way back there, and again, everybody is different. And it starts with the colors and the chakra system colors. And you could almost pinpoint when you get to where you need to get to during your journey. Instead of getting distracted, you could almost pinpoint a moment in time where your life was changed. And I'm not talking about like the Avengers or any kind of movie where you're sitting there watching the shit unfold. What I'm talking about is a feeling, a cellular feeling, your body, how it responds. So when you get there, and try this out, anybody who's listening, try this out, focus out. And now, while you're there, the medicine will actually guide you through it. So now you're experiencing this whole thing as a third person. And it regardless if it was good or bad, no matter how hard it is, because there's no brain involved there. There's no emotions. It's your body.
I love this. It's psychosomatic, isn't it? The trauma is lived psychosomatically. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly.
I love that.
And so the difference between this and regular therapy is very interesting because with here, you're controlling your path. There's no emotion there because you're experiencing it, but you're not visually seeing it. You don't have somebody in front of you saying, tell me about the time that you had XYZ experience. And then you don't want to say it. And then all of a sudden you start crying. And then you see this person across from you who doesn't cry. And then you feel like you did something wrong. And it's just like, I think that's crazy sometimes. Unless you're a caring person like yourself. If you're a caring person, then it would make sense. But if you're like this straightforward person with the glasses and the clipboard, and you're telling somebody to tell me about an experience, whether you were in this crazy situation, you're doing more damage to the person.
Oh, exactly. For sure.
Yeah,
Like it's more most often it's more traumatizing,
yeah,
re-traumatizing the person actually. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy because now when you have this with the plant medicine, and you could control it without going into the brain. Now what happens is your body will finally accept the fact that this shit happened, which then forth will calm down the inflammation of your brain, which what does that mean? So that means taking that folder that Bud had and finally clicking Alt Delete, gone. Gone. I accept it. Thank you. Bravo. So now to be able to do that, now you're talking about real healing. Now you're talking about really understanding the medicine. And being able to go back during those trips. It's controlling those trips while at the same time healing instead of just shooting off into space and saying, hey, I did mushrooms and, the third wave, 10 wave crap. No, you can't experience that stuff until you fix what's inside of you. To fix what's inside of you, you need to have everything open in your brain. And if you don't have that, you're living a lie. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's real. And that's why I feel a lot of people get it wrong. And I'm not knocking. I'm just simply saying, I think intuitively, because I knew it. I just didn't want to admit it when I was,
absolutely. Yeah.
But
I mean, we all do. Yeah, we all do. I think deep down, somatically, we experience it every day with little triggers, little projections, little events that happen to us daily. I love the way you explain the process of releasing trauma with psilocybin, and this is why I love psilocybin therapy, because it really truly helps you somatically release. And I always say you got to be with it. The most famous saying, unless we are being with the sensations and the pain and that bodily reaction, there is no deleting the folders, like you said earlier, about releasing that trauma and then starting your healing journey. But you're so right. Somehow in the West, we don't have this container or the understanding of the healing arts. So when people talk about psychedelics, there is such a stigma attached to it. There's so much negativity. Everybody knows psychedelics for recreational purposes, and they just want to shoot off to the moon or something like that, or into cosmos. Nobody really understands they take you on a healing path like no other therapy, talking therapy. I mean, one of my favorite researchers on trauma, he's very famous, The Body Keeps the Score book. You probably know him, Dr. Bezel. Yes. I mean, he's now leading an MDMA studies on depression with maps. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, this guy has been, studied and researched every single tool out there for therapy, trauma therapy, but now he's seeing a massive value in MDMA therapies. I mean, that's just because of legality. I'm sure if we were, because earlier you talked about there are some people, professionals working with you or interested in working with you, but they cannot expose themselves or come out because of legalizations and how the situation is. So I believe some of these people who really understand trauma, they really credit psychedelics, but they're scared to say it. Also because people are not ready. People don't have containers. They don't imagine if all those strong authoritative, people in those positions who have, they have the credit, they've done the work, they know what trauma is and healing processes. And the moment they endorse psychedelics, can you imagine? People will go and take psychedelics everywhere. They wouldn't care about the resource, how to source it from a trusted person. Earlier, you talked about nearly about over 5 minutes, just cultivating these beautiful substances with music, intention. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody understands this part. So they just want to grab it and just take it for a trip. So thank you so much for all of your wisdom. This is big. This is huge. So
I'm happy to share. If there's one thing I would love, inevitably, is I guess there's a few things with the idea or the use of psilocybin in particular. There's so much more. I mean, don't get me wrong. And I just want to touch on a few things here. There is with depression and trauma. I mean, you have to think about veterans. You have to think about autism. You have to think about bulimia, anorexia. You have to think about, like I said before, rape victims. You have to think about people who have MS. You have to think about people who have people who are amputees. It goes further, and I feel like everybody is jumping on this bandwagon, like I said before, of mental illness, like I said, but once we get there, what is the exit strategy? And I don't hear one from anybody, because is it that you want to keep people on this, or are you trying, like you said, make it a recreational addiction? No, I think that when you get it done and done right, that now what you're doing is you're paying it forward, so those people can now go forward with and touch other people and have a mycelium network, a real one, not this network of who's got the bigger ego, just because you're copying and pasting everybody. By the way, I love your stuff because it's you. But other sites, it's like copy and paste, change a few words around, and all of a sudden I'm this person who knows so much. And it's annoying to me because a lot of it is misplaced information or egoic. I'm not going to say who, but there are charlatans out there. And I think people in the psychedelic industry, or people who are just getting into it or want to learn about it, need to really get an authentic source, like yourself. Like, you are authentic. You understand the movement, but there's some people out there that would just rather be on a chat like us and wait for the other person to finish, so then they can talk about how amazing they are, and one of the things that's interesting, it's like the life coaching psychedelic thing. It's very interesting. It's like, I'm going to charge you $900 too, and I'm going to talk about myself and my experience, but I want you to sit there and smile though. You got it. And then I'll tell you, how to microdose properly, but I'll never see you. Because if I talk to you again, I need another $900 for that 20 minutes because, I'm at the gym. That's the crap. That's the problem. And that annoys me. And it makes me sick to my stomach. But I'm a realist. I'm not a love and light kind of person. I've been the love and light person. I'm a straight shooter. I'm a realist. And I do believe, there's this part of me, and I'm gonna sum this up real quick. There's a part of me that when you're a parent, for example, and your child does something wrong, depending on what your parenting method is, you have to let them know that they're doing something wrong, one way or another, right? Or you let them experience it, But if you let them experience it and they keep doing it, as a parent, there's a responsibility to let this person, hey, you're doing something wrong. You don't want to grow up doing that, because then you're going to be the asshole. That's just the asshole. And I don't want my kid to be an asshole. So you're sitting there like, okay, and you do it. Why don't we do that with adults, especially in our community? Is it like bad or frowned down upon to call somebody out? Maybe it's the way you do it. But at the end of the day, if you don't do that, now, just like the mycelium network, now you get to create a trike network of just mold.
Yeah.
And it'll affect more people. So somebody who's listening to you and somebody who's listening to somebody else, they'll listen to somebody else because they pretend to know more. And therefore, it's a complete collapse in the psychedelic community that we're so trying to build. And it's like you said, that's why I'm here. I'm here to create, grow, teach, have ground and earth shattering stuff and sharing it, and taking that power away from the people who are hurting other people. And that's the truth. And as far as I'll finish up with this, but as far as recreational goes, yeah, you should be able to not fear doing it recreationally. Why? Because it gives you an opportunity to learn something you've never learned before. One study that I just recently had, I had somebody who's never touched a guitar before and worked on our methods, whatever. Within 2 weeks, this guy's playing Led Zeppelin. I'm not even kidding. It's the ability to create. And if you're going to do it recreationally, do art, do sensory stuff.
Yeah.
Connect with your body, learn a guitar, learn something, learn music.
I love that.
We've abandoned music. There's no music anymore. There's no art anymore. There's no artists. There's no poetry. There's nothing. There's digital shit of people wanting to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's
this false image somewhere way over there, and where, I know what you mean exactly. Look at where we are right now. I love your passion, Antonio. I love what you said about, of course, not everybody's going to be seeking psychedelics for healing trauma, because it's not for everybody. But if you are going to go for the recreational psychedelics, then recreational path, then at least do it with authenticity, and for art, for still inspiration, creativity, still adds so much value to the world, right?
Yeah. Bring art back, bring poetry back, bring feeling back, right? Bring human
Connection.
interaction. We need that. We need it. It's so awkward now. Like when you go into somewhere and there's no, you can't, like people say it all the time, you can't even say hello to somebody without having like these weird vibes. Like nobody, like, that's crazy. That's bizarre to me. It's not right. And I don't want my son growing up in that particular world. I don't want that. I'm sure, you don't want your kids going forward. I don't want it. It's just not right. And I honestly, if done right, we could really change a lot of people. And with their obviously, with their own intention, but we can only do so much, right? But I do hope this will take off, and not me. I mean, just the whole movement in general, without being bastardized. I'm grateful for you, by the way.
Thank you.
And I heard, and I heard you. I remember you were with Brian, and he's like running for mayor. He's got like billboards all over the place. Brian Rose, right?
We're all on a different path for sure. And I'm going to come back to what you said. This is so amazing that if we can all be responsible, even if it's just a bunch of people who are really authentic, responsible, and they respect these medicines, and their approach is humble, and I think we got a good chance of helping a lot more people to also connect them the way, I think it's about setting an example, leading by example. And I have a theory that every trauma before it heals, it really explodes. And sometimes when we experience a chaotic events and situations, like pandemic is one of them. And one of my really good friends, he calls it the global collective rites of passage. So, a lot of these, teachers of our time, they talk about chaos before coherence. I feel like there's always a hope in me that psychedelics have their own agenda, and they will win, and they will stir us into the right direction. Human arrogance is real. Human arrogance is very, very seriously a problem. But I do believe that there is so much hope, something to look forward to. And I'm really enjoying the psychedelic renaissance that's happening right now, and enjoying meeting people like you who are really passionate, authentic, and bringing such wisdom to table. So I want to say thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me, because this is awesome. I'm excited to be a part of it, and I just can't wait to like I said, share what we have. Obviously, I can't talk too much about it, but share what we have as far as globally. And there's a lot. Alice is for everybody. I mean, I created it, obviously, Alice in Wonderland, which is one of the best stories ever made. If you read it the way it's meant to be read, and this is something like the story. In particular, if we read it from the caterpillar's point of view, I tell people, don't read it from Alice's point of view, and you'll see a totally different experience. And so that's where I'm at, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everybody I come in contact with, good or indifferent. It's great to be able to, find yourself in the world. It's good to be able to find who you're supposed to be, and it's a great feeling. It's a great growth. And it's amazing.
It's a beautiful process. And I love what you said about Alice Sibin comes from the caterpillar perspective. I read something not long ago, a few days ago. It said, what makes the butterfly beautiful is the gooey, the stuff that the butterfly is captured, when the caterpillar turns into this cocoon. And it's butterflies struggle, and that really trying to escape from this cocoon to fly. That moment is what creates the magic and resilience and strength in the butterfly to do what it does. I think it was so incredible, like chills down spine. So I do love that caterpillar perspective. I think it's a beautiful process, and you need to write this book, and you need to share the world your gift of understanding mycology, understanding mushrooms in such a way that you do. So I'm really looking forward to your journey, and I'm sure we'll have you back very soon on the second part. So for now, I just want to say thank you again.
Susan, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. For your listeners, thank you very much for listening. And also, one last thing, you could learn so much about it. Like I just have to say thank you to somebody who's when we work with me. He's one of my growers, and I met this man, believe it or not, when I first started trying to figure out on Reddit. And there's communities out there other than the psychedelic communities that in the mycology world, on Reddit, shroomery, places like that. And I would like to say that these men and women know more about, as far as cultivating mushrooms than anybody at Johns Hopkins or anybody at any college. These people are great. And this guy, Eric, he was like a big guide for me. And we talk every day. But and then I just went with it. I just went off with it. But I'm very grateful for him, and people in the community that help me with spores or products and anything like that. And I'm not going to plug anybody, but man, it's so great, because it starts like that, because people will just want to connect, and they'll teach you everything you need to know if you really want to get into it. And I think it's a gift. If you could grow your own, not only just psychedelics, but like shiitake, lion's mane, whatever, do it. Get your hands in it, because it doesn't take that long. And when you have your hands in it, when you're growing, and when you're growing, you grow, and it's a beautiful feeling. So that's my advice to people. And I'm grateful for Eric and everything else, our people in the Reddit system. But, it's, get out there, do it, do it.
Yeah, I have such a resistance to end our call, because there's so much we can talk about, but I'm sure we'll have you on the second part, because what you said is so amazing. When you grow, absolutely. And it doesn't need to be psychoactive mushrooms, right? There are lion's mane, shiitake, there's so many mushrooms. The mycology world is so rich. We can begin experimenting with non-psychoactive, so you don't have to deal with the legal side. You can just, I heard, again, another article was saying people are growing, that's the new hobby, growing mushrooms for their breakfast, the non-psychoactive ones, as a hobby in pandemic. So I think it's a great way to connect and grow together.
Yes, 100%. They're alive. And it's cool. Especially, the greatest thing that I've seen is the mycelial growth. When you see it firsthand, the mycelium grow, and it's otherworldly, alien, but it's like, holy crap, that's how our brain looks like. That's what the world is like. And then I go outside too, and I don't know if I sent you the picture, but I'll send it to you, which is the strongest psilocybin. It's psilocybe acirensis, which is the UFO. But watching it connect to a tree and seeing it I can't even explain the magic that's there, because we overlook this every time we take a walk, when we're too busy looking out, thinking inside, that we forget about that's beneath our feet and that's below us. And that mycelial network is one reason why plants talk to other plants and trees, connect with other trees, because of that. And we forget about that.
Yeah, beautiful.
And that to me is for people to just take a look, man. Just look around. You could lift up, you look at the Stamets video, you could just see it everywhere.
Yeah, and fantastic fungi. They did a great job in that documentary, I'm sure. And I definitely want to add to the link. Also, I want to add your links where people can contact you in the notes, and they can reach out to you and learn more.
Oh, it's psilocybin integration.com. It is a work of process. I'm going to be honest. I've been so busy, and I know the websites are the thing now. I'm more of I like direct contact, but psilocybin.com, which will be, it's the landing page is there. I've just got to finish up on it. I'm being honest with it. So I have my LinkedIn, I have my Twitter, which is, everything is alicesybin.com. You could just, or Alice Sybin integration. On Twitter, and Instagram and Facebook. I have a Facebook page that you have, which I show how to, grow. I had somebody
The
actually took my
magic
video down.
works.
Somebody actually complained about me inoculating, and I was inoculating reishi mushrooms, not even psilocybin. And they,
Right.
so Facebook is very weird, but that's where I am, and it's Antonio at AliceCybinIntegration.com. That's my email. So reach out. I am always available. So if you have any questions, let me know. Even if you wanted to argue with me, let me know, because I like that. It gets it out. I'll be your punching bag if you need to get it out.
All right.
So.
Thank you. That's great. So we'll definitely add the links to the show notes, and we'll see you very soon. All the best. All the best. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this passionate conversation with Antonio, and hopefully you've taken a lot. Drop us a feedback, connect with us, and talk to us, and connect with Antonio, connect with me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Much love. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.